Hello back everyone, bonjour tout le monde, rebonjour tout le monde. On a une grosse journée de conférence depuis 14 heures, heure de l'Est aujourd'hui pour le lancement du Coopérathon 2020. Et on finit en grand pour le panel Tech4Good. So the panel that we're going to have right now is Tech4Good. You may ask, what is Tech4Good and what does it imply and how can we contribute and what does we actually need to do? And we'll go through that all together with my wonderful colleague here, Clélia. Clélia, welcome and bienvenue. A huge honor to have you with us.
Thank you, Elias. It's a pleasure to be here as well.
Cool. And we are joined by a wonderful, some wonderful panelists we have here. While Clélia is in the Canadian Space Agency, we have also Jeremy Hansen, her colleague from the Canadian Space Agency as well, Stacy Kauk from Shopify, and we have Emily Chary, as well as Sylvain Carl from Second News, and finally, last but not least, John Weigelt. I hope that I'm not butchering your name, from Microsoft, of course. And we will have the chance, with Emily Chary from Wellseeker, we will have the chance to also have like an extra time with her at the end where she is going to give us some feedback, and hopefully good feedback, but maybe she will give some comments on what our panelists are saying. So be careful, you're being watched. So Clélia, can you maybe, we are lucky to have these wonderful people here, and I would love to get to know them maybe a little bit.
Yes, me too. We're really lucky to have these amazing panelists with us. And so because we want to let you have a chance to explain to the audience what you do, we'll let you tell us more about who you are and what brought you to the Tech4Good field. So Sylvain, maybe we can start with you.
Oui, avec plaisir. Hi everyone, Sylvain Carl. You might know me from previous projects. I'm still working a day a week at Real Ventures as a venture partner, but now my main work has been dedicated to climate change and the climate economy. I'm now a senior director at Second News Capital and currently fundraising a climate impact fund for you investors in the room. We'll talk offline after. And super happy to be here. I've been a contributor to Tech4Good probably before there was a hashtag for Tech4Good in open source and community projects. Always thought that being nice was a great strategy in the ecosystem. So happy to be here, happy to join you all, esteemed panelists, and to contribute to this conversation tonight.
Thank you. Thank you, Sylvain. Stacy?
Thank you, and I'm so happy to be here this afternoon on this amazing panel. So my name's Stacy Kauk, and I'm the director of Shopify's Sustainability Fund. And that Sustainability Fund is a climate fund, so we committed $5 million annually to invest in the most promising climate solutions. And I came about joining Shopify in a very roundabout way. I grew up loving science and math and using math as a tool to measure and describe the natural world around us. And so I decided that I definitely needed to become an engineer. So I went to school and I spent the first part of my career as an environmental engineer, working in many different industrial sectors and designing pollution prevention control measures and environmental protection devices. And I realized that it was time to make a change in my career, and I needed to do a little bit more to strengthen the public policy surrounding our environment here in Canada. So I actually joined the federal government and focused on strengthening our environmental regulatory framework. And I ended up floating over into the climate space and helping Canada negotiate on international environmental treaties. And so I did that for a while. And then it was time to do something where I felt like I could have a massive impact. And that's why I made the move to tech. And Tech4Good is such a wonderful way to think about that, because technology really allows you to scale, and it allows you to multiply your impact. And I think using technology for good is going to really bring us forward all together. So really excited to talk that through with everyone here.
Thank you so much, Stacey. John, maybe do you want to tell us more about yourself?
Certainly, and it's a pleasure to be here with such esteemed colleagues. My family is New Canadians, and I've always felt that Canada gave us a good life here. And so I joined the military and was able to give back to the country in uniform. Following that, I worked in government at Treasury Board and was able again to give back to the community. 17 years working for the Queen and not having private sector experience, I took a look around and said, where can I go to continue to make a difference for Canada? And of course, Microsoft's mission is to empower every individual and organization to achieve their best potential. And I see that within the organization. So not only in the community that we get to work with, because we are now changing and adjusting so that our company better reflects the mosaic that is in Canada. And so that diversity from ethnicity, from background, from religious affiliations, from orientations, really helps us make better decisions and better outcomes. And at this role, I've been able to look at the digital divide and put connectivity into rural regions, connect up with Indigenous communities to help build that skills gap, look at the forests of British Columbia and prevent forest fires, or look at the water tables. And all throughout that, it's giving back and empowering that next generation so that we can live in this great country, but project our know-how around the world and really demonstrate our prosperity.
That's exciting. Thank you, John. Last but not least, Jeremy.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, excited to be here. I'm Jeremy Hansen. I'm an astronaut with the Canadian Space Agency. I started off with the Royal Canadian Air Force. I'm still an active duty colonel with the Air Force, flew F-18s, but I've always had a passion for exploration. And so I applied to be an astronaut really almost 12 years ago now, and I've been working with the space agency ever since. I live down here in Houston, Texas, where I'm joining you today. And it's where we train and get ready to fly in space. I'm just part of an incredible team of people, of course, not just astronauts, a huge team of people that make space exploration possible, but also spend a great deal of time looking at how we can bring benefits from space back to humanity. And for me, Tech4Good, why this panel excites us at the Canadian Space Agency is it's all about innovating to stay in that creative space, to create solutions for humanity. And, a good example of this is how we decided space would be useful, decades and decades ago to join our country, our vast nation, to use communication or space assets to communicate across our country. And now today, you and I rely on space every single day. And I think it's neat to kind of think about it didn't have to be that way. I'm old enough to have grown up in a world where I didn't use space every day of my life, but we have intentionally chosen to integrate space into our daily lives because it is the best way to deliver services. And hopefully we'll talk about later today. Services are going to become more and more global because we can use space. So I'm very passionate about this. Thanks for letting me join today.
Well, thank you very much for being with us. And not everybody knows Clélia. I know she's a very prominent figure here in Montreal, but we have actually more than 1,200 people watching the live. So Clélia, tell us a bit more about yourself, and then let's dive in.
Sure. I'll do quick so we can dive in quickly after. So my background is in open innovation and social impact, and I had the pleasure of working with Elias and the Coopérathon team for the first 4 editions of Coopérathon. And I moved about a year ago to work with government and specifically Impact Canada in the Privy Council office. And that's where I'm bringing in also the Tech4Good side. I'm recently joined the Canadian Space Agency, and I'm working on open innovation initiatives, specifically in the domain of food and space. So lots of great things to talk about. And I am very happy to be here today and to really help join and make links between the different sectors, public, private, social. I think it's very important, and it's great that we have such a great representation on the panel today. So let's dive into the topic now. And we are, as a humanity, facing many massive challenges, whether we're thinking about COVID, about climate change. We have a lot of challenges that we can think about. And I'd love to hear you all from your own perspective. Tell us about how you think that open and collaborative innovation, entrepreneurship, and technology can help in solving some of these massive challenges. Whoever wants to jump in first.
I'll take a stab at that and jumping in. Certainly the challenges that we face are complex and no one organization can do it alone. And so what we found is that in that cooperation, getting those diverse perspectives, getting those different viewpoints really helps us get to the bottom of what a particular situation is. I often talk about this challenge of the curse of knowledge. I'm getting older in my life and I remember things where I've perhaps taken dead end roads. New people to communities have this audacity of inexperience, grand ideas, grand, big, bold goals that they would want to pursue them. And bringing that together with those people that can do is important. When we look at the power of data that we have today, now more than ever, we have data sets that are locked up in communities. If we can bring these data sets together to share them, to make knowledge and to ascertain what's happening behind them, it's just tremendous. Looking at Internet of Things, getting this whole new perspective of the world around us. I often talk about the Hubble telescope. I'm old enough to remember when it first went up. And I was amazed at the ever-expanding universe of matter around us. And every time I saw the Crab Nebula or whatever, it was just amazing. We can do the same thing with our backyard and see the ever-expanding universe of data around us. Looking at the human genome, understanding weather patterns, all of these things come together and give us great solutions. And it's not just tech. We need the farmers to be involved. We need the business entrepreneurs to be involved. We need young people to tell us and share their ideas. And it's through these serendipitous collision of ideas, these fast neuron conversations, that we can make a difference.
Thank you. And maybe speaking of universe, I'd love to hear you, Jeremy, and your thoughts on this topic as well.
Yeah, absolutely. When you talk about big challenges, one we're definitely all focused on in recent years is climate change. And I haven't been to space yet. I'm very fortunate Canadian. The next few years, I'll be flying to space and seeing our planet from beyond. But what really strikes me when I sit with my colleagues when they come back from space is just their renewed appreciation for this rock that we live on and the obvious impact that humanity is having on it becomes even more obvious to them. And they all fly knowing what you and I know, having seen the imagery, having watched the videos, having been impressed by all of it before. They all fly with that. But when they get there, my one friend explained it to me. He's like, there's just no way to convey what it's like to float into the cupola, which is where the windows are on the space station, and to see the world from like wide field of view down to narrow field of view, to take out a camera with a telescopic lens and zoom in on an area. There's just no way to really convey that experience other than to do it. And I'm actually excited about how space exploration is changing, and humanity, more humans will be going to space and seeing this, because I think it'll be good for us. But coming back to climate change, we have been learning more and more about our planet from space for decades now. Canada has become a world leader in a few niche areas on observing our planet from space. We have a really cool climate satellite called SciSat. We've got a RadarSat history we're in our third iteration of RadarSats for mapping our planet. And like you were saying, data sets. We have some amazing historical data sets now that can really help us to understand climate change. And we still have more work to do there, but we have all this capability. But there is no better place to take the heartbeat of our planet than from space. For those that don't know much about orbital mechanics, but if this is the Earth and you take a satellite and you put it in a polar orbit, which is one that goes around the poles, north to south, and then, of course, the Earth spins underneath it every day, you can map the entire planet with one satellite over a given amount of time. And so we're super excited about what this brings to humanity. And I know I'm going on here, but I want to just tie it to one more thing. Climate change to me is a problem of basic needs around our planet. It will affect all of us. It will affect the impoverished the most. But we are talking about fighting for our survival on this planet and coming back to basic needs like understanding water, where it is, where it isn't today. That's changing. Some places have too much water, some don't have enough. Continuing to grow food on this planet to meet our increasing needs. These are important things. Security, safety, managing fires, floods, national defense needs, all of this. Space isn't like the answer to everything, but it's very important that we as Canadians understand that it is a fundamental pillar of all of these solutions. And we need to be very intentional about how we manage it so that we can do it properly and effectively, and we can play a leadership role on the world stage.
Thank you. That's fascinating. And I've definitely loved learning more about what space can do for Earth in these last few months working at the agency. So thank you for that. Sylvain, I would like to turn to you because you've been very well known in the tech space, and I really loved reading you and your recent blogs around your transition. So I'd love to hear more about what your thoughts are and what you have to say on these challenges.
Yes, certainly. Thanks, Clelia. You hear about corporate social responsibility. I think we need to talk about personal social responsibility also. And this is what struck me this year after having some personal convictions for the planet, for the environment. I really thought that I should dedicate all my energy and all my brain cells and all my networks to solve this challenge. This could have been the challenge of the 20th century, but we missed the opportunity. It's now the challenge of the 21st century. And if you can contribute to slowing down climate change, to reversing it a bit if we can, or to adapt to the consequences, you totally should. So if you're a nerd, a geek, a hacker, a scientist, a researcher, you have, I wouldn't say a moral obligation, but a strong calling in front of you. You have the chance to participate to this massive, massive challenge. And as John was saying, this is a major problem. Major problems are not tackled by working in isolation. There's a reason why science has been building up on peer review, on sharing the knowledge, on advancing the state of the art. We need to apply the same process. And I think we have a unique chance as Canadian to combine both who we are as citizens of the world, but also the richness of our educational system, of our social welfare system. We're well off put. And this privilege you should not sit on this privilege. You should take action and spend the time that's required to contribute to this challenge. So this is really a call to arms. I had on my book yesterday the book A Good War that just got published in Canada, making the analogy that fighting the climate challenge was like fighting in the war. I typically don't like war analogies, but I thought this one was pretty apt. And I would put it maybe in a more positive way, saying that positive from a negative perspective, right? Canada has really bad data in terms of how much each citizen contributes to climate change, even given that we're a small country. So step up, do the right thing, and contribute to solving this. Past history shouldn't tie us down to be heroes in the future. That's going to be my call.
Absolutely. Merci Sylvain. And I think pardon, Clélia, tu voulais dire quelque chose? No, c'est correct. En fait, I love how you're setting the table here because, like John talked about the importance of data. Jeremy here talked about how space can teach us, but inspire us and get that learnings into action. And Sylvain here was talking about climate change was a challenge of the 20th century. Now it's a challenge of the 21st century. But the reality that if we don't do anything, it won't be any challenge anymore in the 22nd century because we won't be here. So there are tangible actions, as Sylvain just highlighted. And I would love maybe Stacy to start. But can you tell us a bit about some tangible examples? Because we can talk, but we need to get into the action. Coopérathon is all about the action as well. So any tangible example of an initiative either you set up or your organization has set up in collaboration with different stakeholders from different sectors or whatnot. And maybe like, how can we really walk the talk, and how does Shopify does it?
Oh, that's a great question, because that's exactly what compelled me to join Shopify. I was working at environment and climate change. I was making a difference. I was doing it for Canadians and protecting our environment. And then I saw the ability to have maybe a larger impact. And that's what Shopify has made the commitment to do. We want to be a 100-year company. And in order to do that, we have to take better care of our planet. We have more than 1 million merchants, entrepreneurs, quite mostly, on our platform. And as climate change, the effects of climate change continue to mount, it's going to affect more and more people around the world. No one will be able to hide. And so Shopify's made this commitment to spend our $5 million each year on promising technologies to fight climate change. And, it sounds nice, you could go out and you could buy carbon offsets, you can do all these things, but we wanted to make sure that what we were doing and the decisions we were making actually were going to make a difference. And so what we decided to do with our fund is we wanted to seek out and be an early adopter and an early supporter, an early customer, oftentimes the first customer for a clean tech startup in the climate space. And so we found 13 companies that we wanted to buy carbon removal from. And often they would be like, well, we're not able to do it yet. The research is incomplete, or we don't have our monitoring system built. And we said, okay, well, why don't we overpay for the carbon removal? It might only cost you $20 a ton to do it, but what if we gave you $200? What could you do? Could you scale? What research could you achieve? And then we would contribute to that body of knowledge together. So we've taken a bit of a risky approach. We will lose some money, and that's okay, because what we want to do is take an experimental approach. We don't know what the end game is going to be, right? We don't know what the best decision is or which group of technologies is really going to save us. We believe that all of them are needed. So we wanted to support a wide range of technologies. So we did some nature-based solutions as well as some high-tech kind of solutions like direct air capture. And it's because we don't want to pick one winner. We want to raise all boats in the climate technology space. We want everyone to have a chance to scale their technology. So we went out there and did that, not knowing what the end game will be. And one thing that I would like to share with everyone, and this is my view, even if you don't know where you're going, just take the step in the right direction and everything else will figure itself out. And if you can bring others along with you, then do that. And you have this ability to multiply your impact. And so here's a plug. If you want to see what we've been up to and to geek out on some of the companies that we've invested in, you can check out our sustainability fund web pages. It's really easy. Shopify Sustainability Fund in Google, it'll get you there. So I encourage everyone to take a look, but it's what you do every day. It's every little decision, and together we'll all get there.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I love how you're talking about taking an experimental approach and maybe losing some money. Because I think, and Sylvain once wronged me here, but startups are a lot about like taking an experimental approach and making sometimes some bets. But even large companies can do that. And John, I don't know if you talked earlier about data, and you talked, well, obviously Microsoft does a whole bunch of things, but I think you have few tangible initiatives that are leading the charge in this aspect. Can you share with us a bit?
Absolutely. And so, I got the privilege of working at that interface between policy and technology and avoiding the unintended consequences that technology can bring about. So we have a very robust program that looks at the impact of tech and Tech4Good. And so for years, we've been really trying to solve tough challenges around accessibility, around the digital divide. And we've really brought them home and focused and emphasized our focus on the environment now. And so you will have seen that Microsoft has made a carbon commitment to be carbon negative by 2030. And then by 2050, to remove all the carbon that we've put in the atmosphere since our company was formed in 1975. We've then redoubled our efforts, and we now made a commitment to use less water or to put water back into the environment, more water than we consume. And so it's that demonstration of that positive impact that we do internally that hopefully will bring other companies along. And we've seen other large companies kind of try to keep up to our pace. That said, we've also put in programs to empower others. We can't do this alone. And so we have a number of Tech4Good initiatives. Most prominent this year is our AI for Good. And our AI for Good includes AI for health, AI for accessibility, humanitarian aid, cultural heritage, as well AI for Earth. And we've landed AI for Earth projects here in Canada and looking at things like the water table and whatnot. This is coupled with our Imagine Cup, that's a long-standing activity, a hackathon for students to be able to solve some of our tough challenges. And we're super proud that in 2018, 2 Canadian students solved an accessibility challenge by putting an AI-enabled camera on a limb to be able to win that competition. But lastly, I'd like to talk about that connection that we have with the Canadian community. Industry, Science and Economic Development Canada put together an audacious goal called the Canadian Superclusters, 5 pockets of innovation from the oceans with environmental characterization and ocean sustainability. In Montreal, there's the AI-enabled supply chain, advanced manufacturing in Ontario. There's the proteins-based innovation. Don't let the proteins throw you off. It's all about agriculture, plant-based agriculture. And then in BC, it's digital tech. And there's a ton of innovation that's happening there that we're supporting and leaning in to get the startups going, to get the students going, and really demonstrate that, hey, we can land this Tech4Good across the country and then pile in to get these great ideas going.
Absolutely. And I love that you're finishing on the super clusters, because we actually with Clelia here, we had the opportunity to have an exchange with Scale AI, Digital Supercluster, and NextGen. And indeed, as you were just saying, it's all about collaboration. And Coopérathon is about, and I don't want to do a plug here, but we are here at the launch of Coopérathon, and it's really a challenge because there is no recipe. And I think, like both of you, what you highlighted is we are trying. We, as Sylvain said earlier, it is a moral obligation. It is a personal obligation. We have to try, and we're lucky enough that Canada, as a country, and you have the AI country plan and many, but like also as companies, that's what you guys are doing, as well as the entrepreneurs. And the entrepreneurs are key to do that. And you, as a big organization, Shopify, now I'm putting you in the big organization as well. So whatever, you're not a startup anymore, you're a larger one. But you have a moral obligation as well to collaborate with the smaller players, to contribute, to inspire them. So speaking of inspiration, and we have a startup watching you, so maybe she's going to be very judgmental on what you're saying. Maybe Sylvain or Jeremy here. Jeremy, you talked about agriculture. I know that John here talked about the protein agricultural one. I think you have few initiatives coming in there. Is there any message or lesson that you want to tell our audience here around those subjects maybe? And then I'll finish with Sylvain if he's okay with that.
Absolutely. There's so many things. I just love the idea of, we each have to make our contributions. We just need to be trying. We need to be coming to the table, facing the problems with a creative spirit, with a how can I help? As an astronaut, someone who's going to explore space, I just love my job at Canadian Space Agency because I can dig in some of these other areas and actually lend a hand in some of our initiatives that I think are just have a lot of promise. And they're not instant solutions to everything, but they're drops in the bucket, and they all matter. Some things that we've done that I think people might find interesting. We're working on FireSat right now, which is a new satellite capability in space to give us better data on when fires emerge. So we have a better chance of reducing the impacts to humanity from forest fires, which with climate change is going to be a growing factor. You brought up agriculture. We have a really wonderful initiative. It's very small. It's kind of grassroots. But when it comes to inspiration, space has that ability to inspire. We have always set huge goals in space, and then they bring together teams of people to accomplish them. That's what I love about space. This International Space Station is one of the greatest technical challenges humanity has faced. And we didn't do it as one country. We did it as an international collaboration. The goal was that big. It brought people together from around the world. And as we prepare to leave low Earth orbit, which we're doing, we've committed to going out to the moon again. We're really thinking hard about how we're going to get to Mars. As we do that, we need to be able to do some things in space that we don't necessarily do that well here on Earth. One of them is growing food in the Arctic and creating food security for people in the North. And so we have a really great initiative. It's in Johaven. And this was done with the heart and the spirit of reconciliation, not a, hey, here's how Canadian Space Agency can tell you how to do things. This is like, here's what we've learned about growing growing food in space. Do you think you might want to leverage some of this information with our partners, Agriculture, Agri-Foods Canada, to put a greenhouse here? And now it's community-led. They've called it Narvik, which means growing place. And now they are teaching us how we might grow food in space. And we hope to scale this, because if we can't grow food in the Canadian Arctic, we won't be able to grow food in the moon. And why is it important? Well, it's important for food security here in our country, but also it's an international contribution that Canada will be able to make. We'll be able to say we have a decade or 2 decades of experience doing this. This is something that we can do on the international journey to Mars, for example. We're doing the same thing with health. If we are going to leave low Earth orbit and go on long journeys, we need to change our methodology. Right now, the way we manage astronaut health is we do a lot of screening, too many tests every year. It's just tons and tons of medical tests. But in the future, we're going to have to do more telemedicine. We're going to be sending more people to space without all of this screening. And so we're actually, and this ties into COVID, we've been working on this for a couple years, and hopefully we're going to be able to take some critical steps to leveraging what we've learned about how we'll do it in space to bringing those telemedicine benefits to humanity.
Absolutely, and I love how you're using those 2 examples, because it is very inspiring what can happen in space. But for many of us humans, little humans that don't get to understand all what you're working on, we don't necessarily see the link between what space happens and what Earth happens. And you finished on the telemedicine. Like, there are many topics, like GPS even, that was one of those kind of projects that today we are all enjoying. But you talked about telemedicine, and I would like to highlight the fact that for the first year in Coopérathon, we actually have a startup that's called the Dialogue with Alexi and all the others who are giving a challenge as well on telemedicine. And the challenge itself is, how can you get, well, I was presenting it earlier, but it's basically how can we get telemedicine where it hasn't been before. So maybe in space. That's actually, I loved how you said it. And maybe there is something to be done there. So for the people who are listening to us, that's something to consider. But also on the agricultural side, I know Clélia as well works on implementing this. So you were talking about like kind of like the importance and how it can go back to Earth. But I believe you, in the Canadian Space Agency, you have those programs as a hackathon or things that can happen on Earth for citizens alike to contribute and maybe go past Coopérathon and continue in those programs, right? Like, it's for everybody.
Yeah, so we used to think of space as, hey, we'll build an amazing gadget to solve a space program, and then we'll use it on Earth. But in these cases, the last 2 that I was talking about, the medical and the food, we actually plan to solve it on the planet in cooperation with communities in Canada to become world experts and then take it to space. Because space has changed. You know, we've had humans on the space station for 20 years, every single day, and we might lose sight of that, but that's incredible. And we are going to push out into our solar system, and not, you know, just to get off this planet. I can't wait to get off this planet. This is a great planet to live, but it's to push humanity. And when we bring these people together, we actually learn more about ourselves. And as we're highlighting in this panel, we're going to need all of those skill sets in order to save humanity if we really want to be able to live well into the future.
Absolutely. Clélia, maybe if you could add, because this is very, very inspiring, but for me, if I want to participate, Clélia, can you help me maybe, where should I knock? I can send him an email that I know, I have his email, but like concretely, what can I do next?
Well, be on the lookout for opportunities and stuff like open challenges like Coopérathon and others that will be announced later are great opportunities to look into problems that are sponsored by organization. And I think that's it's at the heart of Coopérathon. And when there is a real problem to be solved with sponsors behind, that's where you have opportunity to also incentivize people that did not think of working together to work together. And if we take the example of food and space, someone working on urban farming or vertical agriculture might not have the thoughts that the product that they're working on could one day help an astronaut stay alive on Mars, or feed someone in a hot desert or the Canadian North. So just building these connections between, even when we think about robotics, AI, we were talking about the superclusters earlier, people that have expertise in those very specific tech domains have a lot to bring to a lot of the other domains, like food, health, and all the challenges we can think about, really.
Absolutely. So on this aspect, actually, Sylvain, if you don't mind, I know you were on the tech side, and for many, and like I'll say it because I've been working in this for a while, and like sometimes you talk to social entrepreneurs and they're like, oh, tech people, and then you talk to tech people are like, no, I want to like build something massive. Those social entrepreneurs just want to build like a straw that is made of paper instead of plastic. Whoa, beautiful ambition. Sylvain here, through your journey at Real Venture, Techstars, and today with Second News, can you tell us a bit more, like at the crossroad of those two worlds, is there like a trou noir, or is there something that can happen actually?
No, actually, it's tech innovation and social impact starts with people. And the worst mistake that both business people, tech people, or even socially minded citizens make is to try to do it alone, right? Most amazing projects require a combination of skills, and actually competitions or events like Coopérathon, Startup Weekend, you were talking about other hackathons. This is a great place to meet someone. And the most interesting companies I've been working with and investing in have this combination of values and mission. So they're driven by something. It's going to be hard, so you better be driven. Domain expertise. So what's your deep down knowledge of a specific domain? What do you know that other people don't know or don't understand or don't believe? And then really often a tech person, which would help put this into a platform, into a product. So a tech geek alone won't build a great company. Someone who's fantastic at selling something but has nothing concrete to sell will not be successful. And if you want to change the world, you need all the skills that are available for you. So for me, it's really this combination of whatever's the project and the idea you're working on today for Coopérathon. Maybe it will be successful, maybe it won't. But remember the people you meet, because you'll meet them again. And you might reach to them in 6 months. I remember I went to a startup weekend and there was this two guys. One guy was super, extremely well-versed into bus logistics, and the other was a hacker at Shopify. They created this company called Share the Bus. They joined Founder Fuel, and they created a company that is a pretty sizable company now in Montreal, and they're innovating in this market where no one thought there would be innovation. Everyone thought like bus transportation. Is that boring? I remember, could there be like 2 bus companies in Montreal? Well, the other one, BusBud, just raised $15 million today, announced their Series C. So never underestimate it. But talking about BusBud, LP has been doing this for like 10 years. So brace yourself. If you want to make something that matters, it's a decade. It's not about the quick flip. It's not about the quick wins, although you have to iterate always. If you want to do something that matters, dedicate the next 10 years to it.
Yes, you're muted.
Then being muted is probably like the sentence of the COVID crisis. So thank you for plugging it. I think it's like Merriam-Webster or whatever who put like the sentence of the year. So here you go. Merci. Thank you, Sylvain, on closing on this, because I think the main difference between 10 years ago and today is that there are actually more and more prominent investors that want to hear your ideas, that want to invest in your product, that want to help you raise to the task and invest in your company. like Second Muse, for example. Thank you again, Sylvain. Thanks everyone here. I don't know, John and Stacy, if there is any like parting words that you wanna like quickly, one last word before my wonderful colleague here, Clélia, closes.
I'll just echo the people conversation. You know, what I've seen in hackathons and hackfests is you build that innovation muscle, that creativity, and you get to connect with smart people. What you build in a hackathon might not go much further, but then it's what you build tomorrow, which really makes a difference. So let's remember, it's all about the people.
Absolutely.
The only thing that I would add is start now and don't be afraid to fail, because that's where the biggest learn and the biggest opportunity is. When it's really hard, that's where you're going to grow, and that's where your excellent idea is going to come from. So try, fail, and pivot and get it done, and we'll all do it together.
Thank you, Clélia. Thank you.
Thank you. I was looking down a bit because I was taking notes, and I want to make sure I captured some of the essence of what you were saying. And something I really want to underline is that what kept coming back probably through every single interaction and interventions that we had today was the idea of people, the idea of values, of connecting, of collaboration, and then a sense of urgency and timing. So we heard a lot, brace yourself, you have to start now. It takes dedication. We have a moral obligation to do it now. So I think that whether you are part of a small organization, a large organization, whether you're on your own looking to start something new during Coopérathon, whether you are in the private, the public, or the social sector, you won't be able to do it alone. And the important is to find and connect with the people that are in these other organizations that might be very different from you and might be across the country, across sectors, and you might at first find that you speak completely different languages. Because when you're a tech expert or when you're a social innovation practitioner, you speak very different languages at first. So take the time to really connect with the people around you. And I think Coopérathon is a great first step to do so, because now is a good timing to do so. I think Tech4Good is gaining in interest. Hashtag is trending more and more, and there's a reason for it, because the timing is now, and we have big challenges, and we need to act. So have a really good Coopérathon, and thank you so much to all of our speakers. Your words and your different perspectives were definitely a great addition, and I hope they've inspired and will inspire the different participants tonight to take action wherever they are and wherever they're standing in their career.
Wow, thank you, Clélia. Thank you, everyone. I love how you're closing this, because it feels like we're wrapping up, but we're not done yet, actually. Absolutely, as you all said, like, it's the moment to act, and I think like the space, and sorry, Jeremy, not the space, not your space, our little space here, but the space that we're creating on Earth to try and to act and to fail, to learn and to iterate, as John, Sylvain, the others highlighted, is the right one, because we're actually stuck at home for most of us, in front of our laptop. We're building this amazing platform to try to meet people, to connect with them, and to learn with more than 150 mentors. I wish we had 150 sponsors. That's another story. Next year. But jokes aside, this is the space we're creating, space and time with the learnings to act. And as John highlighted, but also like when you talked, Jeremy, about the International Space Station, it's about collaboration. So I'm extremely happy to have with us Emily here, whose startup, and I'm not going to introducing her a lot, because she has more than 20 years of experience as a biologist. She's the co-founder and CEO of Whale Seekers. She's also Techstars AI Montreal 2020. I don't know if we can say it, but like I said it, of this year actually. And at their core, it's really about leveraging AI to scale, because as Sylvain will tell you, it's all about scaling, to scale the whale detection. I won't do the pitching à sa place. I think she has been practicing it, because the demo day of Techstars was a couple of days ago. So Emily, let us get you on stage, introduce yourself quickly, and you have your startup pitch whenever you are ready.
Great. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. This has been a really great panel. So yes, I am Emily Charretissier. I'm the CEO of Whale Seeker. And as the company name implies, we use tech to detect actual whales. So think about the oil and gas industry, governments, conservation organizations, shipping companies. What could they all have in common? Whales. So whether mandated by laws or motivated by values, they all need to detect whales, and they all share this exact same pain point. They need to detect whales faster, more easily, and more reliably. So currently, visual whale detection is done mostly by human eyes. This means human eyes out of an aircraft window, human eyes off the bow of a boat, or human eyes scanning a computer screen with imagery on there. This is slow, this is expensive, and this is not scalable, as you mentioned. So by automating this, we are giving people a tool to monitor whales more effectively, with the goal of giving businesses and whales a win-win solution.
You're on mute again, Elias. But that's okay, I'll jump in. You had to be unmuted.
Thank you very much, Emily.
Thank you so much, Emily. It's fascinating, and it's super interesting to hear what you're doing, and congrats on being part of Techstars.
Thank you.
I would love to hear about your views and your perception on the panel we just had, and as a startup being in the action, working on Tech4Good every day. What can you tell us about what you just heard, and what are your thoughts?
Well, I was so excited to hear that this is something that so many different sectors are interested in. And I really particularly loved Shopify's early investment into early stage environmental companies. This is a time that is very difficult for startups. Usually startups have, you're sort of always riding the razor's edge on resources. So you either have time or money, probably very little of both, because you're trying to do everything at once. And a lot of people are interested in innovation, but they want something that's already been tried and tested and de-risked. And this sort of goes against having an innovative solution, So I really appreciate their realistic approach, saying, okay, this doesn't exist yet. What are you building? How can we help you get there faster? I thought that was a great message. And I hope there's a domino effect for that. And I was really inspired by the variety of Tech4Good initiatives that are out there by really big companies, and that it's a value that people are more and more interested in.
I'm going to unmute myself this time. The reason why I mute myself is that when you're talking, it's so interesting that I tend to want to actually jump in. So I'm making sure that I'm not able to jump in.
You can jump in. You can jump in. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you for this comment. And I think that brings us actually to the core of it. And as you said, it was different points of view, way more initiative than I actually thought before researching this kind of subject. And a subject, by the way, that Clélia had highlighted years ago, that only today we're all catching up. And I'm very happy to see large companies doing so. On your end, and as a startup, as you said, it's a difficult time. What would be, and let's say we're just the three of us, Sylvain, John, Stacy, Jeremy, they left. They're not watching us. And by the way, a huge thanks to them. I didn't get the chance to say it, so really, really thank you for their time, etc. But let's say they're not here. What would be a message for them, but also for the large organizations or governments who might want to collaborate with you or with other startups in an open innovation context?
Yeah, there's a lot of people who say they want to encourage small and medium-sized companies to contribute or participate to whatever initiatives they have. But then the application process is so timely and so technical and specific that it takes an amount of time that a lot of startups can't spare. We can't spare a time to do a 100-page technical application. We really need to focus on our actual work and growing our company. So we end up missing out on some of those opportunities that could really springboard us to where we want to go. But there are some ways, so some open innovation ways, and I'm thinking about particularly the challenges that are accessible to startups because they're incremental and they don't necessarily favor a huge company with lots of resources that have already done this time and time again. They put more emphasis on the ideas and the solutions behind it. So I would suggest shifting to something that's in more bite-sized stages instead of huge projects.
I like what you're saying here, and I'm going to do it live because that's how I am, and I think like we have to write it up. So I'm going to ask live feedback because I didn't get it by text. But I would like to take a bit more time. I know we had to close at 5:55, but maybe if we can take 5 or 7 extra minutes, because what you're saying is actually really interesting. Not that I wasn't expecting that, by the way. So,
surprise.
No, just to be clear here. I have another question for you. I believe, and I don't know if you're comfortable talking about it, but like I believe there are governments that are working with you, and there are, and I again, like feel free to comment at the level you want to comment. From a government perspective, we have Clélia here, who's in a way part of that. How can we help you better as a government? To when you're talking about like bite sizes, etc., how can we adapt? Because they're actually, now they are building those challenges. They are in the middle of it. And if there is any advice for someone like Clélia, so I'm making her a panelist now, but like, there is an advice to give to people like Clélia, Jeremy, and others on those challenges. What would it be? Maybe through your learnings as well.
What would I say? Well, I would say to place a value on interdisciplinary teams, which is another topic that came out in the panel tonight, and how really important it is to have people who are experts in lots of domains, but not just collaborating each other once a month to touch base on a solution, but to really be under the same roof and be working on the same problem day in and day out. It's an extra investment because, as you said, somebody might be in a totally different domain as you, and you have really synergistic interests, but it might take a little time to dig and find those common interests. But the power behind a truly interdisciplinary team is a really great investment and something that I would put a lot of priority in, instead of a combination of just a huge tech company pairing with a huge environmental company. I personally don't feel like that's the way to solve all the problems. I think it needs to be more grassroots and purely kind of innovation teamwork.
I love what you're saying here, and I will let Clélia maybe right after follow up on this, because it's honestly like that was not planned. And I think like what you're saying here, definitely for anyone watching us, this exchange, we didn't have a dry run. We didn't exchange before. But what you're saying here is so crucial. It's the multidisciplinary approach. It's the importance of bringing humans, the right people, but right people we don't know. Like it's not a recipe, And if I could say, one of the big challenges in creating our multidisciplinary team, we're just getting in the same room together. So I'm a biologist, and my whole network is biologists. I'm not short on that discipline at all, but I had a really hard time cracking into the tech community in Montreal that is a tech hub. And I couldn't get into meetups. I couldn't get into groups because I wasn't already a tech person. And so
something that I would encourage are multidisciplinary meetups around a topic instead of around a skill set. So you could foster those groups a lot better. I thankfully, I have a dog, and so does my co-founder, and we serendipitously met at the dog park. But barring that, I don't know. I don't think we would have crossed paths. So yeah, I would say just to the general community to foster more opportunities for real interdisciplinary action.
Speaking of serendipity, actually, sorry, Clélia. So speaking of serendipity, actually, this is so important because when we talk about coopérathon, and like what you said, like it was serendipitous. What we're trying to do with coopérathon is creating, or what we call manufacturing serendipity. And for that, you need to bring those cross talent or cross pollination, etc. And it's really important that we don't segregate by tech, non-tech, etc. And I hope that Sylvain is listening here, because when we talked about like the climate change initiatives, it's difficult to bring all those different peoples. And that's what we're trying to do at Coopérathon. And maybe I just received like some text. I'm trying to multitask, not as good as Clélia because she's better than me. She's a woman as well. I'm just a man. I'm trying to multitask here. But I think there are some stats that I would like to share with us here because of what you said. We are about like 1,100 participants in the Coopérathon itself. So we're like about 2,000 people at the conference, but in the whole program. It's a 4 weeks program. I presented it earlier, but like in a nutshell, 4 weeks program, multidisciplinary. We have about a third of women, 2/3 of men and others, about 33 years old on average. We are in all provinces and all territory here in Quebec. But what is really interesting from my experience, and I think, Clélia, you can jump in as well here, is that, at Coopérathon, we had like the teams that you would not expect win, like old people, young people. We had all Black woman team that won last year that had like half of it technical, the other non-technical. We had someone coming from 8 hours. I don't even remember the city. I apologize for him. Coming 8 hours away every weekend to be part of Coopérathon. Like, old guy, gray hair. I wasn't expecting that. Anyway, I can like give many examples, but like all those like unexpected manifestations of innovation are key, as you just said. And we're trying to kind of like create this environment. And I would like maybe to just give the puck, passer la puck à Clélia on this, because she's currently working. I don't know, again, like the level of what she can say, so I'm not going to say what she's working on. But like you're working on some stuff that relates this kind of like multidisciplinary aspect that has relationship with innovation and sustainability on Earth. When you hear what Emily is saying here, what are your thoughts?
So like the fact that you met in a dog park is just amazing. That was the serendipitous moment that helped create your startup. I found absolutely great. And I hear you when you say that there's a need for more connections beyond, like between the communities of people that have the same expertise and other communities that are completely different, because and it was a panel on Tech4Good, and I'm a big fan of Tech4Good. Elias knows it. I've been pushing to get impact in tech for a while, but I think that it's definitely not the only solution either. And I think, as you mentioned, Emily, we need grassroots movements. We need people from all backgrounds. We need the scientists. We need those that are passionate by what they're doing and bring people together around this idea of multidisciplinary teams to collaborate. And tech and Tech4Good in general should not be a turnoff for collaboration. And sometimes it can be daunting. And I myself just joined the Canadian Space Agency. I don't have a scientific background. I don't have an engineering background. My background is in social innovation and open innovation. So there was a moment of scare a little bit joining there, being like, I'm going to be surrounded by smart people who all have PhDs. But what I realized is, of course, they're all super smart and inspiring, but we teach a lot to each other. And my little team that I'm working with on a daily basis is just amazing because their knowledge is so profound and so different that we really feel the complementarity of working together. And I think that should be an aim, whether at any scale we're talking about, whether it's a team for a startup or in coopérathon, or whether it's a multi-million or billion-dollar project to create like public-private partnership. And I think it's missing an element of public-private social partnership because social movements are also really important in that. So I totally agree that bringing people together is super important. And I'll just add a last thing that I wanted to say on what Emily said is the idea of iterating. And it is true for a project as it is for the government. And the concept of experimentation is very present in the government as well. And where I'm working with Impact Canada, building challenges is a whole new way of doing things. And we have to jump through many hoops to be able to launch certain programs and initiatives. So this idea of experimentation, iteration is true for all levels of work, wherever you work. So I think I would love to close the night with these two ideas, that iterating and experimenting and at the same time collaborating and connecting are essential. And Elias, I'll pass you the puck one last time to close us off because I think we've run out of time officially.
Yeah, it's okay. I know that my team will throw at me tomatoes afterwards, but it's okay. Unless like they cut me off. No, one last point. Because we have the opportunity to be here on stage. Emily, you did great. Your startup is doing great. I know you cannot talk about everything, but there are great things ahead, but also challenges ahead. As for many startups, and I've been working with startups for almost a decade, no more hair, but is there any call to action or any next step or any ask that you would like to say to everyone who's watching us today? Could be like a next step for yourself or your company, or maybe for your dog or any. I don't know.
I think I'd like to turn it around to everyone who's participating, and as Sylvain was saying, it is hard. It's very fulfilling, but it's hard. And so you need to be passionate about whatever you're doing, and you need to care deeply about it because it really is the journey that needs to be rewarding as well as the end goal. And if you can find a group of like-minded people that share that passion and that work ethic with you, just be really open-minded to what that team can look like. And go for it. Don't be. I know imposter syndrome is everywhere, but everyone has it. And I would just say, move. Just do it. Just take the step and go.
Wow, thank you very much, Emily. And this highlights so much like the spirit and values that you have in your company. I ask you if there is any call to action or anything that you need, and you reverse the table and you actually give an advice for everyone here. Like, honestly, madame, je te tire mon chapeau, j'ai pas de chapeau, je le tire, chapeau bas.
Oh, c'est gentil, merci.
Merci vraiment, vraiment. C'est vraiment inspirant et c'est ce qu'on essaie de faire avec le coopérathon, avec tous nos partenaires. Je sais qu'on a travaillé d'arrache-pied, que ce soit au niveau de l'innovation ouverte, je vais pas reparler de tous les partenaires là-dessus, ou les gens justement qui ont plus des expertises, des mentors. We are trying to create this space so that people, residents of Canada, coast to coast, can contribute, because there's a power in diversity. And I know that in another panel earlier, we had Wes Hall, who is leading the Black North initiatives with whom Desjardins just partnered up, who highlighted over and over, which I truly believe, there is so much richness, even though from a human values, but also from a tangible, innovative aspect of the diversity of mind, spirits, kind of work, even sometimes it's difficult. Like Claudia can be a testimonial for how easy it is sometimes to work with me, but it brings the best of us and it brings it to the next level. And we are creating this space, as Emily just said, so that people can try, surrounded by the right mentors and coaches over the next 4 or 5 weeks, as well as some money to grab. And I think you didn't highlight it, but I will say so. If there are investors in the room, have a look at those startups. Many, like Sylvain, did the jump from like like investment mind pure to like a more altruistic investment aspect. But you can get both. It's not just one or the other. The big challenge that we have for the next decade are also the most rewarding, both for society, but also for your pockets, and I'm sure for your soul as well. We have to invest in those projects. And if anything, we have to be curious about them. We have to mingle, as Emily just highlighted, go to the meetups that talk about that, because you don't know where is the next Elon Musk. And I really hope that the next company that will be at this size will be built here in Canada. That's what we're trying to do with Coopérathon. Year over year, we're at our 5th edition. And I hope that there will be 10 more and that we will solve the biggest challenges with the best people. So thank you so much, Emily, here. Thank you so much for all our speakers. Thanks for the Canadian Space Agency that actually was super flexible to find us speakers and everything. Thank you, Claudia, for your crazy hard work. I know like many things are behind the scene and don't look because it goes smoothly. When things go smoothly, you don't know every work that has been done. A huge thank as well, obviously, sorry, for Sylvain, for Stacy. Stacy, I just talked to her and the Bureau du Président. And in one day, they replied being like, yeah, I believe in what you're doing. I'm down. Microsoft as well, like super busy CTO, taking their time off. Did I forget someone? Jeremy, of course, who's really inspired us and made us understand better what those technologies can be used tangibly on Earth and why we have to actually participate in those things. So thanks for everyone who contributed, took the time off to be with us here today. I would like to give a special shout out to Deborah Hayek, who really has been leading this panel. And I know there is a lot of work being done in the back that doesn't show up on the screen. It's easy. We all worked very hard to get it done, but it's easy to forget that kind of like hard work also that doesn't show on screen. We are actually, I'm just getting the information, we are more than 1180 participants pour la compétition en tant que telle. On a dépassé les 2000 pour la conférence. This is amazing. I wasn't expecting that. I'm very excited. A bit stressed, but that's a good stress. A huge thanks as well for the whole team of Coopérathon. I will try to start naming them, but it will be an issue if I forget someone. But thank you so much for everyone, both on the mentor side, on the Open Innovation Project. Really, like they've been working their asses off to deliver on that. Shout out to Fed as well, who's leading this Coopérathon for the last 4 or 5 years now, and like putting his heart and soul for that. And I know like closer to me, there is a whole bunch of people who don't show up on screens, but who are doing their best to deliver the best experience for all the aspiring entrepreneurs. Thanks as well for the technical aspect, people who support us, all our partners, and the ones that we don't always shout out, the community partners as well. And of course, thanks for KPMG, Desjardins, who, because we need money to run all this, you know, like this show costs money as well. So thanks a lot for their trust and belief in how open innovation and social entrepreneurship can change the world and have a positive impact for all our futures. So thanks so much. On that note, I think we're closing the event. People can still register on cooperathon.ca, join the adventure with us. We have few days more to register, so please take this chance. Thanks again, Emily. Best of luck for you and your startup. Merci encore, Clélia, pour tout. Et à très bientôt. Je vous souhaite une très bonne soirée, tout le monde.
Thank you. Have a great evening.
Thank you so much.